Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and Rare Gem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at oneraregem.com. That's ONERAREGEM.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission.
Today we are joined in the studio by Chris Krehmeyer, President and CEO of Beyond Housing and host of the local weekly talk show Going Beyond.
And the idea was to play off the name of my organization, Beyond Housing, but say, what as a region can we do to go beyond what we've been doing today, whatever today is. And obviously today is in our region is different than August 8th and before. So for me, we know we can and should do better. We know that people in our community are still suffering. We know there are things that we need to address, and can we have a bit of a conversation that spurs people to do more than they are doing currently to make a difference of other folks here in the St. Louis region?
Listeners, many of you may not know this, but Chris and his show, Going Beyond, inspired the St. Louis Regional Health Commission to take their Alive and Well STL initiative to the airwaves. We'll be right back. I'd like to start off by asking you, what does it mean to you to be alive and well in STL?
Alive and well in STL, it means that each and every day I can put my feet on the ground, get started on my day to be with my family and make sure that they are alive and well, and then get to come to work. And my work is about trying to make community better, trying to make community healthier. So I'm blessed to be able to do that each and every day for the last 21 plus years. So my hope is I'm going to continue that as long as I can keep doing it.
Alive and Well STL.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am Bethany Johnson-Javois, host of Alive and Well STL and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission. Today we are joined in the studio by Chris Krehmeyer, President and CEO of Beyond Housing and host of the local weekly talk show Going Beyond. Listeners, many of you may not know this, but Chris and his show Going Beyond inspired the St. Louis Regional Health Commission to take their Alive and Well STL initiative to the airwaves. So today's episode combined both shows, Going Beyond and Alive and Well STL. Thank you, Chris, for joining today on the other side of the mic.
Great to be on the show. Great to have the combination show.
This is going to be fun. And thank you for allowing us to come into your footsteps in terms of the show and the content. We really appreciate the collaboration on this.
As I see how you guys do it, as I told you, it may have been our idea, but you guys seem to execute it really, really well. So congrats on all your success.
Much appreciated. So tell me about the theme Going Beyond. What does that mean?
The idea of the theme of the show is there is much work to do in our community, in our region. And the idea was to play off the name of my organization, Beyond Housing, but say, what as a region can we do to go beyond what we've been doing today, whatever today is. And obviously today is in our region is different than August 8th and before. So for me, we know we can and should do better. We know that people in our community are still suffering. We know there are things that we need to address, and can we have a bit of a conversation that spurs people to do more than they are doing currently to make a difference of other folks here in the St. Louis region?
I think from the Alive and Well perspective, Going Beyond is looking beyond a certain segment of people, a certain level of healthcare, four walls, and really thinking about how we start talking about people's spirits and souls and minds and bodies and hearts and integrating those together in this work, which kind of leads us to this common intersection point today. So kind of off the paper, Chris, you and I almost immediately after August 8th, August 9th timeframe got together and just had a candid conversation about our community and what we do next. Can you share with our listeners how you began to think about this word called trauma and how you began to think about how to operationalize some of the principles and some of the human elements of this within your work?
So, one of the first times I heard you speak and use the phrase trauma, because it's not something in my world that we would use on a regular basis. But when I heard you speak and heard you use it in the context of the folks that we so proudly serve every day, I'm like, that's it. Right? That's what folks struggle with every day. And part of our work of providing a decent, safe, affordable place to live, part of providing a grocery store, providing an opportunity to have their voice truly be heard relative to the decision making about what happens in their neighborhood, in their community. Part of our work and, our belief in our Ask, Align, Act model that says the first thing we do in community is we ask people who live there, what do you think are the challenges? What do you think are the issues? And more importantly, what do you believe are the solutions to make your community better? So for me, something that we were addressing even without knowing we were addressing it was giving homage and respect to people's day-to-day lives, which can be traumatic, which have been traumatic. And how do we, in a respectful and caring way, say, how can we together make your community, your world just a little bit better?
What are you finding are the answers coming from those that you're listening to?
Look, first and foremost, people want their voice to be heard, right? They don't want to be voiceless. They don't want to be not seen relative to, hey, I'm here. This is my life. The things that you others do impact my life and my family's life. So first and foremost, it's giving respect to that they are indeed of great value. And then for us, we try to affirm consistently that we work for you. This is not, we're really smart. We're coming in and doing all these fantastic things. At the end of the day, we work for you. And for them to be able to see day in, day out, that we're consistent with that idea of, community building happens at the speed of trust, which is language that we like to use. Well, trust is not built because you do a fancy ribbon cutting at the grocery store, which was really cool and nice. But at the end of the day, if we then leave the community after that, and now we're done, then we don't have that trust and we don't have that confidence that folks who we serve and we work for and live in this community have confidence in us. So it's a continuation each and every day of providing real life honor to those that live there. And as issues arise, can we really try to address them in partnership with folks who live in community?
Can you share with us the playbook, since we're coming off of football weekend? I think I'm thinking about it. But what is the playbook for earning trust, given what you said? And it's such a wise comment. Community development happens at the speed of trust. And change, there's a connection to the speed of change being connected to the speed of trust as well. So I'd just love to hear your opinion.
So I'll stay with your football analogy. I think there's a couple of things. One, it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and you get up and you do it again and again and again, right? So it's showing up. It's being in community. It's being in relationship each and every day, not when it's convenient for you, not when there's something exciting happening, not when there's press there, but each and every day you show up. The other, sports analogy is every now and again you got to hit a home run, right? So bringing a grocery store, and we have a movie theater under construction, and we're working closely with the school district, providing children with college savings accounts, and we're doing after school programming, and you have to do real life tangible things that people can see. So again, it's being consistent even when things aren't great, because in this work, in this life, there are ups and downs, and if you only want to be with your partners when things are good, then they don't believe that you're really there for the long run, and when things go bad, you may run away. So again, for us, it's consistency, it's being in relationship, and it's being clear that you have to get some stuff done.
I think in being transparent about keeping your word. If you make a commitment, you've got to stick to that commitment, and you've got to continue to communicate if something changes with people, because people have an expectation when trust is earned for delivery.
Look, clearly, if you can't be consistent, and I have been in several public meetings over the last several years where I had to raise my hand and say, we made a mistake. Did we as an organization have to? Probably didn't have to, right? We could have just kind of skirted around it, would have been okay. But the reality was we made a mistake, right? And the biggest mistake on both these last two occasions was abridging the trust and the relationship with community, right? So we knew it was so important that if we are legitimate about what we say, that our actions had to follow that. So it's okay to be vulnerable and say, we made a mistake and we were trying to do the right kinds of things, but we just made a mistake. Sorry about that. Lesson learned, and we'll try not to make that same mistake again, but we won't promise that we won't make another mistake somewhere down the road. The hope is not too frequent and not too often, but there's a great likelihood that we will. And I think being vulnerable with someone, I think builds a relationship, because in our case, we didn't necessarily have to be vulnerable and say, I'm sorry. But I think being vulnerable with someone lets them know you really care about them, and that they can in turn, if needed necessary, be the same with you.
You described earning trust. It sounds a lot in this language of having a trauma-informed approach. We've also talked a lot on this show about the profound impact of trauma and toxic stress on health and other outcomes, looking at how this lens can reshape our individual and community health. So it sounds to me that your approach to community development recognizes some of these same principles. You may call it different things, but they're there. Principles like empowerment, transparency, collaboration, trust, other things. Many of the communities you serve have experienced significant generational stress and trauma. How do these factors impact your approach?
Well, look, I think it does it in a couple of ways. One, I think we have to be clear in understanding, our community's frame of reference, right? So sometimes we come in with, we have this great idea. We've seen the data, we've seen the best practice stuff, and we have this great idea. But sometimes folks in community aren't quite as ready to embrace whatever, we may think is a good idea, informed on some of their information and other things that we get. So you just have to be patient and just say, if you're not ready today, either for this conversation or for this idea, then we'll be patient and take some time and ask the question, what do you think it would take to get you there? Mm-hmm. Right? Again, honoring kind of their place and time and where their feet stand at this particular moment, and recognize that they may not be ready. And if so, then we don't move forward because it's their community and they get to help define that. I think secondarily, it's also a continuation of recognizing that our great middle class intentions notwithstanding, that sometimes, folks have a different perspective on things, and what they believe is important needs to inform everything that we do. And again, as much as I love getting stuff done as fast as possible because there's such great need, we have to be patient and we have to be respectful. And again, let the voice of those we serve drive our work day in and day out.
Can you share what is your greatest frustration within community development, that if you had any advice for people to stop this behavior or change that behavior with another behavior, what would it be?
I think it's our need to find the one answer. If we just do this one thing, magically everything will be better. Jobs, housing, education, health, economic development, and you can add more to that list, right? At the end of the day, community is a fabric of many things, and its health and vitality is incumbent upon many things being in place. That makes it inherently harder and more complicated. Mm-hmm. But failure to tackle complex problem with a complex solution means we're going to fail. So I push people to stop making be just about education or just about jobs or just about fill in the blank, mm-hmm. and say it's about all of those things. And if we deliver a system that is intentionally integrated, addressing all of those needs, that's where long-term success and sustainability will live.
So again, another common concept that we have in common is the thought about resiliency and the inherent belief that people and communities have the ability to come back, to bounce back in some way. So we're in an interesting situation in St. Louis. This crisis is different. Many people have defined it as our Selma moment, quite frankly. You and your team at Beyond Housing have made it your life's work to build resilient communities. So tell us, what are the things that make up a resilient community? What are some specific examples that you can provide about the resilience of a neighborhood or a community for our listeners?
Yes. So for us, it's, again, a variety of things. First and foremost, it's community voice. Where is there a platform for everyone in community to have their voice be heard? We know there are elected officials. We know there are those who are very active and engaged, and those are two great vehicles of voice. But we also know there are so many others out in community that we try to make sure, how do we give them voice? How do we give them the microphone for a moment and say, here is what I feel, here's what I know, and here's what I would like to see happen. And then from that, how do we look at, again, all the things that make up a fabric of a place? And how do we put the wheels in motion to get those things rolling forward? And then the hardest task is then how do we find the intersection between all those things, right? Where is the connectivity between housing and health and housing and education and health and education? And how do we then bring in jobs? How do we bring in economic development and do that intentionally and do that consistently and create systems that don't allow that to slow down and that continue to perpetuate that movement forward? We think, again, if you start with community and community voice and you try to find the right delivery system, the alignment of resources, people, organizations, and hard dollars, then we think that's where you can have success. Our goal is, can we show the work that we're doing be the other end of the Edmund Pettus Bridge, metaphorically, to say when good things happen, we can cross that bridge to someplace better. And we hope that our model can be one that can be replicated by others.
I'm concerned about young people and the voices of young people. What's most concerning? Is there any particular voice that, from your perspective, you think is needing to be amplified or needing to be present that maybe is not right now that we need to call upon?
Yeah, look, I think clearly in our work too, and we have struggled to find the right vehicle to get young folks in our community to have a consistent voice. So we've tried to work with the Normandy School District and try to find ways to, there is a platform, but we know that's not the only platform. We've had several conversations with a number of the protest groups coming out of Ferguson and found those fascinating conversations. And
what are they saying?
Well, first and foremost, they're just humbling by how smart they are. Just in general, right? As a professional doing this for a lot of years, I just sit and listen, and I try to listen more than I talk when I meet with these young folks. I think what they're saying is there are so many systemic problems that aren't being addressed, and they're weary of the old guard. And that's not necessarily a negative on the people themselves, but the approaches and the way they've done it just haven't been successful. It's being honest and owning things haven't worked. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, but the way you've gone about it truly hasn't worked as far as these young folks can see in their mind and their lives. And you cannot argue with the fact that things haven't worked. And they're saying, we need to do something different, right? And I think to the extent that they give us in the old guard a little courage to do things differently, including letting them have the microphone, including letting them have some power in decision making, and then, asking and pushing them to keep helping us now. You brought your voice, now let's stay with it. What I want to see happen is we, the collective we, but it's really them, have to keep poking the system. Got to keep pushing, because our natural inclination is let's go back to what's more comfortable, and that's the way it used to be. So somebody has to keep pushing the system while we deliver programmatic efforts that I think are different than we have always. Not that everything needs to change from a program delivery standpoint, but clearly they've raised some issues about, here's what I know because of what I've grown up with and what I've seen, and no one's here to help us. And unless we can, again, have the courage to say, tell me again what you're saying, where the problem rests, and what could be the solutions, and then we're going to keep doing the same kind of things that, quite frankly, have not been very impactful long term.
So we always close the show with giving listeners at least one thing that they can do tangibly within their life to be able to make a difference, to be able to impact themselves or their community. What's your suggestion today for encouragement for someone who's listening that they can do one thing? What is the one thing? Care
about your neighbors. I don't mean that in a esoteric way. I mean that in a real and honest way, right? So do you know your neighbors? Can you lend a hand with something in their life? Can you just take a moment to say hello? How you doing? How was your day, right? We're in this space and time now where we all believe we're so busy we can't take the time to take a deep breath, let alone be kind and generous to somebody else. So the one thing you can control each and every day is how you interact with others. And that can be your neighbors where you live. That could be the checkout person at the grocery store. That could be anybody you run into. Show an act of kindness. And guess what? That will, one, I guarantee it'll make you feel better. But two, it just may make a big difference in the lives of that other person. Anything else you want to share with our listeners before we close? I think this is the second best radio show in the St. Louis marketplace. Coming from you, I think that's a compliment. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Chris, as always, for your work, for what you bring to the work, for the style of your leadership. It's refreshing, as always, to speak with you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Alive and Well STL. We look so forward to speaking with you again next week. For more information about today's program and to become involved in Alive and Well STL, download the smartphone application Bonfire, BONFYRE, and search for Alive and Well, or visit us online at aliveandwellstl.com. We'll be back next week. Alive and Well STL. We are grateful for your gift of time to this conversation. We encourage you to stay involved and get involved. If you, your family, or your organization is interested in talking about how we better the well-being of the region, sign up for more information, join the conversation, log on to aliveandwellstl.com
Come and let's build a plan on how we can work together and improve our overall health and become alive and well. The Regional Health Commission, with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Jr., committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade in 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at stlrhc.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of Rare Gym Productions. Thanks for listening.